According to Bill Hendricks of the Global Center for Giftedness, God has gifted each of us in a unique way. We'll explore that on this edition of the Encouragement for You podcast.
Welcome to the Encouragement for You podcast, brought to you by Encouragement Communications. In just a moment, your host, Don Hawkins, will introduce today's episode. But first, a word from our sponsors.
Faith shapes how we live, and it should shape how we steward our money too. That's why 316 Financial exists. We're an online bank created to help people align their finances with their faith and their values. At 316 Financial, 10% of our profits are given back to faith-based ministries, supporting work that makes a lasting difference. It's a simple idea. Everyday banking can be a powerful way to live generously, and you don't have to sacrifice quality to bank with purpose. 316 Financial offers modern online banking, no monthly fees, free ATM access nationwide, and competitive interest rates designed to help your money grow responsibly. Whether you're saving for the future, managing everyday expenses, or looking for a bank that reflects what matters most to you, 316 Financial makes it easy to bank with intention. Learn more and open an account today at bank316.com. Banking services are provided by 316 Financial, a division of Primis Bank, member FDIC.
eGuard Watch Company's mission is a focus on faith and unwavering truth. Visit eGuardWatches.com to view the new faith-driven jewelry and watch line. Discount code 20eGuard saves 20% store-wide. Products are made unique to showcase your faith proudly and unashamed. Visit eGuardWatches.com. Code 20eGuard saves 20%. That's eGuardWatches.com. Your purchase will help raise awareness of Christians persecuted overseas, and resources from sales will go to help charities in those spaces.
Bill Hendricks is the Executive Director of the Hendricks Center for Christian Leadership at the Dallas Theological Seminary. He is also the co-founder and president of the Global Center for Giftedness. In today's Encouragement for You podcast episode, Bill and host Don Hawkins discuss Bill's book, The Person Called You, Why You're Here, Why You Matter, and What You Should Do with Your Life.
Bill, I love the title of your book. It's published by Moody Publishing, available on Amazon, available at Christian bookstores. What prompted you to get into this specific area of giftedness?
Frankly, my own discovery, that somebody helped me discover my own giftedness at age 30. Don, I had graduated from my second master's degree, and about a week after that graduation, my wife said, hey, I'm tired of putting you through school. I want to stay home and start a family. You need to get out there and make some money.
I've heard stories like that before.
Well, the problem was I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was pretty scared about it. And about that time, somebody introduced me to a gentleman who had this pretty amazing process that I now use. It wasn't a test or an inventory. It was a storytelling process. Out of that, he was able to show me a lifelong pattern of behavior that I had used and just didn't realize it. And it really described what we would call my giftedness.
Wow. Can we nail down a definition for giftedness? Maybe that would be a good place to start.
Yeah, the simplest definition of giftedness is it's what you're born to do. It turns out that every human being is born to do something, whether it's to solve a problem or to understand something at a very deep level or to get a finished product or to meet a big challenge. When you look into the person's life, you discover that they keep coming back to this unique and personal way of engaging the world, and they never tire of doing it. And it's because God made them to do that.
So how does your work in giftedness help people discover their calling?
It helps them discover how God has made them. And remember, each of us is designed by God from the womb. We are made in His image. And what we discover is that design shows up when the person shows up in the world, and that behavior is a reflection of the design of God in the person's life. So if God designs somebody to be a problem solver, in a sense, that's their calling, is to look for problems that they can then go to work on. Now, they have some choice about that, but the point is they need to use that gift that he's given them.
Yeah, you really emphasize the area of use, sort of like riding a bicycle.
Yeah.
Watching videos and reading manuals
That's
doesn't
all well
exactly.
and good.
Yeah.
But at some point, you got to jump on that bike and
you
use
need to
it.
take the training wheels off at some point, too.
That's right.
Most of us in the Christian community frequently use the term spiritual gifts. Can you distinguish between those two ideas, or are you saying they're the same thing?
Well, I don't make a hard and fast distinction between the two. I grew up, as you know, in the church, and I've my whole life heard about spiritual gifts, and obviously there's about 4 passages in the New Testament that talk about the gifts, and usually it's translated spiritual gifts. As I really went to school on all that subject, however, I discovered that there's a lot of questions about spiritual gifts that remain unanswered, and then meanwhile, there's this phenomenon, and by phenomenon, I mean like gravity's a phenomenon. You don't have to know anything about gravity. It's just the way the world is.
Fall off a roof and you'll know what it is.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's a phenomenon about people, and it's what we call their giftedness.
Yeah.
That every person really does manifest a pattern of behavior that points to some natural, instinctive, intrinsic ability and motivation that they have. When we get to, say, 1 Corinthians 12, where Paul names off a bunch of gifts, you see that very thing. And it's almost like he's saying, folks, we got a lot of different kind of people here. We got some leaders, we got some teachers, we got some administrators. We have a whole catch-all category of just people that want to help, the helpers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And givers and all kinds of people. Now, he does mix in elsewhere. You have gifts of tongues and gifts of prophecy and gifts of healing. And what are clearly the power of God working through a human being to do that which otherwise would not happen.
So it makes sense to me that the Holy Spirit would be involved in empowering the natural God-given ability that's
the
there.
Thing. The point is that whether we talk about spiritual gifts or natural gifts or anything we have, all we have has been given us by God. All of it is a manifestation of His grace. And if we say, well, you're just talking about talents. Okay, if you want to use that term,
call it a talent.
But where do they come from? They come from God. He's the one who made us.
And most people who want to talk about talents are using the parable of the talents in the Bible, which happened to be money.
That was money. Although it's interesting, Don, you bring up the parable of the talents.
Some people have the gift of giving. Okay,
well,
there's the talent of money.
Talent was a unit of money. But somewhere in the Middle Ages, it actually kind of flipped into what we talk about as talents of people.
Okay.
And so, it was just an interesting coincidence that term ended up,
it sort of flipped in its meaning.
Exactly.
I've learned something already, and many of you listening have learned some things about spiritual gifts and giftedness and the connection. But I think the issue is, how do we learn what our giftedness is?
Yeah. Lots of people say, well, I could take a test or a questionnaire, an assessment of some sort. Those have their places, but they all kind of put you in a category. You're this type of person. You have a number, you have a letter, whatever. And, I don't argue against that, but I believe that the better way is back to this storytelling exercise. Certain moments in your life, you've done something that you enjoyed doing and you felt like you accomplished something. And if you find a partner and you tell about 8 or 10 of those stories to your partner, and then you look at the words that you used in telling those stories, you will start to see dots that connect among those stories, and they will form a pattern that describes what we would call your giftedness.
So, all right, let me put me on the spot for a second here.
Right.
There is no spiritual gift of radio, at least that I've not found in either the Old or New Testament.
No, but Don, for as long as I've known you, which is now several decades.
Quite a few.
First of all, you've got a beautiful voice. You've got a present personality. In other words, a dynamic personality. You're able to hold your own in a conversation, and even over the phone, like you're not seeing your listeners, but you're communicating with them and you're connecting with them.
And listening to them. And then you string that together with topics. You've been with Menartha Meyer in the counseling field. You've been with discipleship. You've been in countless other
topics. And so you always come back to that, I've got something important that I want to help people understand.
Yeah, and I feel like it ties into if you look for a spiritual gift, encouragement, which, as you know, is the idea of being called alongside to help. It's not the Hawkins show. It's encouragement. And it's about the guests. It's about the topics.
You've created a platform for experts or specialists in different areas to communicate.
Yeah. And for me, it's very refreshing to be able to say, all right, I want to talk to somebody. I want to help them communicate their message. And I believe that to some degree, that's what Barnabas did with Paul.
Yep.
It's what Barnabas did with John Mark, who at one point Paul threw him off the team. And then later he said he's profitable to me for ministry in 2 Timothy chapter 4. So I think there's a valid use for this area of giftedness.
Well, the key word you used there, Don, was refreshing. Giftedness is not only ability, it's motivation. You gain a lot of energy from doing this thing that you do of encouragement.
Yeah.
We'll be back with more after a brief word from our sponsors. And don't forget to listen for Dawn's live weekend talk show, Encouragement Live, heard Saturdays at 7:05 p.m. Central Time on American Family Radio and other radio stations around the country, as well as on the worshipchannel.org.
Faith shapes how we live, and it should shape how we steward our money too. That's why 316 Financial exists. We're an online bank created to help people align their finances with their faith and their values. At 316 Financial, 10% of our profits are given back to faith-based ministries, supporting work that makes a lasting difference. It's a simple idea. Everyday banking can be a powerful way to live generously, and you don't have to sacrifice quality to bank with purpose. 316 Financial offers modern online banking, no monthly fees, free ATM access nationwide, and competitive interest rates designed to help your money grow responsibly. Whether you're saving for the future, managing everyday expenses, or looking for a bank that reflects what matters most to you, 316 Financial makes it easy to bank with intention. Learn more and open an account today at bank316.com. Banking services are provided by 316 Financial, a division of Primis Bank, member FDIC.
Egard Watch Company is a rarity today. They stood up against Hollywood and political elites, pushing narratives like toxic masculinity, allowing men and women's sports, and trying to defund the police. Now Egard is standing up for the most important thing of all, faith. Visit egardwatches.com, where code 20EGARD saves 20%. Egard's collection of Christian jewelry and watches are made with the goal of raising awareness and supporting Christians persecuted worldwide. egardwatches.com, code 20EGARD saves 20%.
Now, part 2 of the discussion on giftedness with Bill Hendricks of the Global Center for Giftedness, an encouragement for you host, Don Hawkins.
Fascinating discussion on telling stories about what's in your life. Anything you'd like to elaborate on that about, Bill?
Well, the stories we're looking for are stories where you've actually enjoyed the activity you were doing. These could be very simple. When I was 5 years old, my brother and sisters, we used to play hide and seek. That could be the story. Or when I was in junior high school, I had a history class and I did a report that I got a standing ovation on, and I just really remember that as a highlight of seventh grade.
Yeah.
Everybody has these golden moments in their life when they did something that they enjoyed doing and they felt like they accomplished something. It was meaningful to them. Those are the kind of stories, we call them giftedness stories, we're looking for.
That's great. And so you sit down with somebody, hopefully share those stories with them, and they help you sort of sift that out. Now, once again, thegiftednesscenter.com is the place to go to find out where you can connect with a member of your staff and maybe find out how to do that. And another approach would be to go on Amazon or eBay or somewhere, get a copy of The Person Called You. This is the title of the book, The Person Called You, Why You're Here, Why You Matter, and what you should do with your life.
And in the back of that book, we actually have a simplified version of that storytelling process in the appendix. And the instructions are in there, and you can do it.
Love it. Get a copy of that book, The Person Called You. Recommend it to you highly. Now, this whole process that you've talked about of storytelling, and it certainly sounds like it might take some length of time. It might, but which is not a bad thing.
If you spent maybe 5 to 10 minutes on each story, because you want to give as much detail as you can about what you did and how you did it, and you tell 6, 8, 10 of those stories, it'll take an hour and 15 minutes, hour and a half maybe. But, Don, it is such a fun exercise. I mean, how often do people get to go back in their life and talk about the good things that they remember?
And have people listen to them.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a psychologist out at Biola who says that the difference between being listened to and being loved is so close that most people can't tell the difference.
That's amazing. That's a great. That wasn't Clyde Naramore, was it?
It was a guy named, I think it was David Augsburg.
Augsburg, yeah. I've read some of his. Yeah, I know his books. I don't know him personally, but I
love that.
Yeah,
I love that because most people don't get listened to.
Yeah, and in life coaching, and Rodney was the founder of the Master Life Coach Training Institute, and a lot of that is listening and asking probing questions, cultivating questions. And another area, Bill, that intrigues me about this is that you talk about how gifts can and should be used not just in our churches or in ministry, but in our work and family and community. Yeah. So I think, all these people now who are running for political office, I mentioned to you before the broadcast
in the season
how many
now.
texts I'm getting from people running for county judge or county prosecutor or county whatever.
Dog catcher.
Yeah. And all of them are conservatives and all of them are this and that. And, they all wear MAGA hats or whatever.
Right.
At least that's what they claim. But the bottom line is you're saying if you're going into civil service or if you're an executive in a company, you use this giftedness. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think because we've had such an emphasis on what we call spiritual gifts, many people think that the gifts are only to be used at church. Well, of course they should be used at church and in the life of the church. But we're people 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We take that giftedness with us into our workplaces. And frankly, I believe that if possible, we should look for work that fits our giftedness. We may have to be creative about that. But to me, that's the workplace is where we spend most of our time. Therefore, it makes sense that that's the place that we would show up with the best of who we are in order to make a contribution to the world.
So what do you say to the person who says, my boss is the boss that just ascended out of the bottomless pit of the abyss and is persecuting me unmercifully?
Well,
and my coworkers, it's hard to soar like an eagle if you're working with turkeys. Yeah. And I really feel badly about my job. What do you tell that person?
First of all, I tell them they're not alone. I mean, the number one reason people quit their jobs is they can't stand their boss. Whatever's number two is way back there.
Probably their fellow employees.
You also have to realize your boss is a human being, and God may have you there in order to manifest His grace and kindness to that person, even though they're very difficult to work with, because you may be the only person that person meets who knows Jesus.
Yeah. Tremendous opportunities there. You devote a whole chapter in the book, and the book is titled A Person Called You, and you devote it to giftedness and job fit. Talk about the importance of finding job fit and what to do about it if you don't fit the job.
Well, it relates to what I just said. To the extent you have options, it makes sense that you would look for work that makes good use of your giftedness. So I've mentioned several times the person who loves to solve problems. That means they're not really looking for a job, they're looking for a problem. And so the work needs to reflect that. They don't need to be working at a place where everybody solved all the problems and we just do the same thing over and over.
Crank out widgets or something.
No, they need to devote themselves. Maybe it's research they get into. Maybe it's detective work they get into.
Maybe counseling.
They're working on a problem there. Maybe they're a journalist and they do investigative reporting. There's all kinds of ways that a person might manifest that job.
And maybe some of you are sensing that God is calling you into ministry, and you could go to somewhere like Dallas Theological Seminary and become equipped to really get into ministry, even at midlife.
Absolutely. everybody's trying to figure out what they're going to do when they grow up. But, the real question is, what am I going to do next?
So I guess the question for younger people, Bill, is how early in life do you start paying attention to giftedness?
In terms of formal assessment, you really that really starts at about age 17, 18. Person's got to have enough life experience to have some stories to tell.
Senior in high school, maybe.
Yeah. But here's the good news, particularly for parents, that the child, from the moment they're born, I believe, has this giftedness within them. And even as a parent, you can start to see in very certainly primitive ways, but in childlike ways. But as the child increases their capacities, their skills and so forth, you will see more sophisticated behavior that they keep coming back to. And so the question is, what holds their interest, or what captures their interest, or what do they do by the hour and they never seem to tire of it? What activities do they keep going back to? As a parent, you can make observations, and if you write down some of those in a journal over 5-10 years, you'll have a mountain of evidence that points unmistakably to a pattern.
I hear what you're saying. You're actually saying, and by the way, we do have listeners who are parents of children, parents of teenagers, college students, young adults, and we have a ton of grandparents. Yes. It seems like our demographic skews in that direction. And
so grandparents can make those observations as well.
Yeah, but to do that, you have to spend time with the kids,
That's
with
right.
the grandkids.
You got to pay attention.
Yeah. And what do you say to the elderly person who may feel like, well, I've never discovered my gift, and it's probably too late?
It's not too late. It's never too early to discover one's giftedness, but by the same token, it's never too late. I've worked with people who are retired, had an 85-year-old man come to me and say, listen, I've got to find a purpose. I'm dying out here. And we looked, and sure enough, there was a pattern, even though he'd been an insurance guy, but he had this gift for coaching people, which you're very familiar with.
Oh, yeah.
He had been a coach to a lot of people up and coming in that field, and he loved it. And I said, do you realize how many people in their 20s, 30s, 40s need what you have to offer? Now you've got more time than ever. And sure enough, he went into coaching, not sort of to get paid, but just to have something to do. And he's the last I talked with him, he's doing as great as ever.
And he's making a difference in the lives of people. And that's the thing that you may think as a senior, well, I've retired, I'm not making money, I'm not earning money, maybe I've got a little retirement. But
you got to have a purpose.
Yeah, I need to have I think of, again, this man was a great football coach, Paul Bear Bryant, at the University of Alabama,
know it well.
Won national championships, and he retired from coaching, and literally 5 weeks later he died.
Yeah.
And Nick Saban came along and won 6 national championships after him, retired, and immediately went into media. And he's now doing all kinds of media things and business things, and seems to be doing very well, and probably not nearly at risk of dying. If Bear Bryant had done what Nick Saban did after he retired, and again, both these men were great coaches. They had the ability to motivate young men. There's no question about it. Now, again, you may not be an Alabama football fan, and I am, but that's okay. You're probably a Texas fan,
But,
Bill.
I have a neighbor who's retired, and she had a lifelong interest in quilting. And down upstairs at her house, she's got a whole room up there that she's devoted to quilting, and she makes these beautiful quilts, and she sends them to a place in Florida that's helping unwed mothers. And for every one of those unwed mothers, she makes a quilt so that they know somebody cares about them.
That's incredible to think about. Yeah,
it's a ministry of encouragement.
Yeah, it is a way of encouraging a tangible.
But using a skill and a gift that she has.
Yeah, and again, maybe she would not be a person who would give words of encouragement, but would do deeds of encouragement.
Exactly.
And I think of people, we have some ladies in our church here who went over to visit 2 ladies who were in one of the retirement centers in our community. And the following week or 2 weeks later, one of those 2 ladies was brought by her daughter and son-in-law to church. And the lady told me it was just amazing that these 4 ladies came And this lady was not connected with our church. Her daughter and son-in-law were, but she had not. But the other lady that they had come to visit had been a longtime member here, actually probably a charter member. But it just bonded her with the church and just gave her great encouragement.
Exactly.
And there may be people, the telephone is a tool that we use for texting nowadays.
Yeah, right.
But there's another function of the telephone that you remember the old bell saying, reach out and touch someone?
There you go. We can do that more than ever now.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. I mean, you can reach out with WhatsApp to people on the other side of the world.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it is incredible. Maybe you've got a missionary on the mission field in Mexico, South America, somewhere like that. You can send them a message, send them a text, send them a picture, tell them
a word of encouragement.
Yeah, word of encouragement. Just a tremendous thing to do. Now, 1 Corinthians 12 and those other New Testament passages you mentioned, they remind us that there are many different kinds of gifts and that we need every single one of them.
Yeah.
I'm curious, Bill, as to how your work in giftedness has underscored the reality of the fact that we need each one of them.
To date, Don, I estimate that I've put about 2,500 people through the process that I use. And I've seen 2,500 unique people. Like nobody has exactly the same gift. Yeah, there's some categories, but everybody does life a little bit differently. And to realize every one of them is here for a purpose. And we need all kinds of people in this world because there's all kinds of stuff that needs to be done in this world.
Right.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Encouragement for You with Don Hawkins, host of Encouragement Live Radio and author of over 25 books, including Never Give Up and Master Discipleship Today. You can find more about Don and his books at encouragementlive.org. Encouragement for You is a production of Encouragement Communications. Editing by Phil Giebers. Production by Elizabeth Andrade. If you enjoyed what you heard today, we'd love for you to head over to your favorite podcast app and leave us a review. It really does help people find us. Stay encouraged and join us next time for Encouragement for You.
Hey there, it's Nicole Eunice from the How to Study the Bible podcast, and I'd love to invite you to join us as we weekly discover a passage of God's Word together. From beginning to end, from principles to practicals, we are here to make sure that God's Word is powerful and relevant to your life. If that sounds like something you're looking for, I would love to invite you to subscribe. You can go to lifeaudio.com and search How to Study the Bible, and we'll see you there.